Sometimes we're going to be interested in scenarios where we're doing sampling from a population without replacement. So we'll have a collection of items or a collection of people, and we're going to be drawing from these items or these people, and we're not going to be replacing the items when we do this. And we might be interested in counting up the number of individuals from this population with some particular trait that we observe in the sample. When we are using a random variable to model this setting, the random variable is going to follow a hypergeometric distribution. So if a random variable counts the number of successes on a fixed number of draws from a finite population without replacement, it is said to follow a hypergeometric distribution. So what are we thinking about more specifically here? Well, suppose that x is a random variable, and the random variable is obtained by counting the number of items drawn that meet some criteria, supposing that they're drawn from a finite population without replacement. So we have a collection of items, right? We have balls in an urn, we have people at a university, whatever it may be. And what we're going to do is we're going to randomly select out these individuals. We're going to take balls out of the urn. We're going to draw cards out of a deck of cards. We're going to select people at random from our university. And we're interested in knowing how many of these people meet some criteria. So how many of the balls that we draw out are colored red? How many of the cards that we pull out are spades? How many of the individuals that we randomly select at the university are in third year? Okay. So in these cases, there's some criteria that we care about. We are pulling them at random from their total population, and we're never replacing them. So once we've pulled out a card from the deck, it's off to the side. Once we've pulled a ball out of the urn, we're not placing it back in. Once we've selected a person from the university, we're not going to be selecting them again. Okay. If we then want to know, well, what's the distribution of x in this case, that is going to follow a hypergeometric distribution. So the distribution of x is referred to as a hypergeometric distribution. And when we're characterizing a hypergeometric distribution, there are three parameters of interest to us. So that's capital N, lowercase n, and m. These are going to represent the total population size. So capital N is the total number of items in the population. Lowercase n is the sample size, so how many we are drawing. And capital M is going to be the number in the population that actually meet our criteria. So the number of balls in the urn that are red, or the number of spades in the deck of cards, or the number of individuals at the university in third year. So we need to know the total population size, the sample size we're drawing, and the number of individuals that meet our criteria. If we know this, then we can write that x follows a hypergeometric distribution, right? And the probability mass function of x is going to be given to us by this expression here. Okay, and so it's n minus m, choose n minus x, m choose x, and then divided by n choose n. Okay, and so this could be worked out directly. I do want to draw just a tiny bit of attention right now to the space of x, the valid values that our random variable can actually take on. And we can see that it's going to be a sequence of integers starting from the maximum of either 0 or m minus n plus little n, and then it goes up to the minimum of little n and m. Okay. We'll talk more about exactly where those values are coming from, but just to say at this point that there's some minimum value and there's some maximum value, and our random variable can take on any of the values between those two. Once we know this PMF, we could work out the summaries, and we find that the expected value is going to be n, little n times by m divided by n, and the variance is going to be little n times by the ratio of m over n, times n minus m over n, times n minus little n over n minus 1. Okay, and so in this case, we have the variance. It's a fairly long multiplicative expression here, but it relies on just our three parameters and then some multiplication and division. So let's look at some examples. In the first, we have 100 balls in an urn. 15 of those are red. X is going to be a random variable that counts the number of balls that are observed, number of red balls that are observed in 10 draws from the urn. And so here, right, we're drawing this without replacement. We want to say that there is going to be a total population size of 100, right? There are 100 balls in the urn. Of these 100, 15 of them are going to be red. And we are going to be selecting a sample of size 10. Right? So this is going to be a hypergeometric distribution because we're sampling without replacement from a fixed population. Okay? So what's the distribution of x? Well, it's hypergeometric with a population size of 100, 15 matching our criteria, and a sample size of 10. So what's the probability that x is equal to 3 here? Well, then we can take our probability mass function and we can plug into it based on the values that we actually have here, right? So the probability mass function is going to be n minus m, choose n minus x, times by m, choose x, divided by n, choose n, right? So that's 100 minus 15, choose 10 minus 3, times by 15, choose 3, divided by 100, choose 10. And if we do that, that's 0.12974, so about 12.97%, right? So probability that x is 3 is going to be around 13%. Now, what's the expected value of x? Well, the expected value of x is going to be our sample size times by the number matching the criteria divided by the total number. And so here we're going to have n times m divided by n. So that's 10 times 15 divided by 100. So that gives us 1.5. And the standard deviation, well, the standard deviation is going to be the square root of our variance, right? The variance is going to be given to us by that longer expression there. And so if we want to take a look at what that is, well, that's going to be little n, so that's 10 times by 15 out of 100 times 100 minus 15 out of 100 times 100 minus 10 over 100 minus 1, right? We square root that whole thing and we get 1.0766. So the standard deviation is just over 1, right? And so because this is a hypergeometric distribution, once we've identified that, we know the probability mass function, we know the expected value, we know the variance, and this can all be calculated using that. Okay. Now, second example here, we are going to select 10 items from a lot of 50 of them. And if more than one of those is found defective, then the entire lot is going to be rejected. So what's the probability that our lot is going to be rejected if, and then we'll think about some different scenarios here, if there are 5 defective items. So in this case, let's think about what we're doing, right? We are sampling items out of a total of 50. So we have a total of n equals 50 items. We're going to take them out of the lot and test them, right? So this is sampling without replacement. Right? Of these, we're saying, well, there are 5 defective items, okay? So m is 5, and we are going to take a sample of size 10, right? So 10 items are going to be selected out of this population without replacement. And so as a result, we select 10 from the total of 50 with m being 5. And we want to know, well, what's the probability that we find any defective item? So what's the probability that x is going to be greater than or equal to 1? And this is going to be much easier for us to solve using complements, right? Probability x is greater than or equal to 1 is the same as 1 minus the probability that x is equal to 0, which is 1 minus the probability mass function with 0 plugged in. Because we know that this is going to be hypergeometric over here, right? We know the probability mass function for our hypergeometric, and so we can plug in our parameter values, right? And then calculate out 1 minus the PMF with 0 plugged in. So we can walk through this calculation here, okay? X is hypergeometric with a total of 50, a total of the defective of 5, and sample size of 10. So we're going to solve for 1 minus the probability that x is equal to 0. Using the PMF, right, if we plug everything into the PMF, we get our 50 minus 5, or 10 minus 0, or 5 choose 0, 50 choose 10, right? But we don't just want the PMF at 0. What we want is actually 1 minus this value, and so that's 0.6894. So if there are 5 defective items in a lot of 50 and we take 10 of them, then there is a 68.94% chance that we find at least 1 defective item. Now, what if there are 10 defective items in the lot? Okay, well, here it's the exact same setup, right? But instead of us thinking about this being a hypergeometric with 50, 5, and 10, now we're going to be thinking about this as being hypergeometric, except it's going to be 50, 10, and 10, right? Because there are going to be a total of 10 defective items there, right? With the total of 10 defective items, then we don't change the probability we're calculating, but when we're plugging into our PMF, we're no longer going to have this being a 5 here, right? This is now going to be a 10. Everything else is going to stay the same. So x is hypergeometric with a 50, 10, and 10. We still want the probability that x is greater than or equal to 1. So plugging into our PMF, we get 50 minus 10, choose 10 minus 0, times by 10, choose 0, divided by 50, choose 10. And doing this gives us a probability of about 0.1975. Okay. And so there's over a 91, almost a 92% chance that if there are 10 defective items, we still find a defective item there, at least 1 defective item. Okay. So the last thing that I want to chat about is the bounds on the hypergeometric and its relationship to the binomial distribution. So the maximum value that we are allowed for our random variable is going to be the smaller of our sample size and the number of items that meet the criteria. And so let's think about why is this the case? Well, we cannot possibly observe more than n successes if we take n draws, right? So if you're taking a sample of size 10, then you can't have more than 10 total items that meet the criteria, right? And so 10 is definitely, in that case, going to be an upper bound. However, if we only have m individuals that meet the criteria, then you can't have more than m items either, right? So if you're taking a sample of size 10, but there are only 5 people in the population that meet the criteria, then your maximum's not 10, your maximum's actually 5, right? And so because of that, we have to think about, well, which of these is smaller, right? Is the sample size smaller, at which point you could have everything in your sample being one of them that meets the criteria, or is the number that meet the criteria smaller, at which point you could sample all of those, but you could never have more than that, right? So the maximum has to be whichever of those is actually smaller. Now, if we think about the minimum is going to be the larger of either 0 or m minus n plus n. Okay? And so where does this come from? Well, we could never observe fewer than 0 successes, right? If you don't observe anyone, then you get 0. So that's where the 0 is coming from. But the other piece looks a little bit stranger, right? And so if the number of non-drawn items is smaller than m, right? So if the number of leftover items is actually going to be smaller than m, you must have drawn at least some successes, right? And so let's take a look at a formal example here. Let's imagine that we're going to take 9 items. Our total population is a size 10, and 4 of those are successful. Okay, so in this case, we're taking a sample of size 9 out of 10 total items. There are 4 successes. So how many successes are we guaranteed to get? Well, at most, we could have 1 leftover success, right? Because we've taken 9 items, there are a total of 10. And so the last one, maybe that's a success. But even if we have 1 leftover success, right, that still means that we had 3 successes that were actually drawn. And so we must have at least 3 successes in this case, which if we then plug into and we take our 4 minus 10 plus 9, that gives us 3. Okay, and so in this case, if you're taking a large enough sample, then you might be guaranteed to get some successes. All right, and because of that, you need to be considering your minimum is either going to be 0 if it's possible to select a sample without any successes, or it's going to be the minimum number of successes that you would need, right? Now, the other thing to point out that is if n grows very, very large, then the hypergeometric behaves like the binomial. So we think about the binomial as being counting the number of successes in a set number of trials where the success probability is constant. When we do sampling without replacement, our success probability changes after each draw, right? Because the population size is changing, the number of success items remaining is changing, and so we have a non-constant probability. But let's imagine that you have 1 billion individuals in your population, and you're going to take a sample of size 10, okay? In this case, the amount that those probabilities are going to change is very, very small because you're dealing with billions of people and you only have 10 that you're selecting out. So in that case, you're basically not changing your success probability. And if you don't change your success probability, then we have the binomial distribution again. So whenever our sample size is sufficiently large, then the hypergeometric is going to behave almost exactly like the binomial. In that case, we're thinking about P, the success probability, as being the ratio of successes here. So that's m divided by n. And if you look at the expected values, then they're actually equivalent. And if you were to look at their variances, then they're almost equivalent. And if you let n get bigger and bigger and bigger, then they actually become equivalent in the limit there. Okay? And so the hypergeometric and the binomial distribution are closely connected, where the hypergeometric is sampling without replacement, and the binomial can be viewed as sampling with replacement or working with a constant probability of success. So whenever you're going to be performing a fixed number of trials, a fixed number of samples to be drawn without replacement from a finite population, then the random variable that counts the number of total successes follows a hypergeometric distribution. So if you see sampling without replacement, you should immediately be thinking hypergeometric distribution. And once you've identified that something follows the hypergeometric distribution, then we know its probability mass function, we know its expected value, we know its variance, and our calculations become a lot easier at that point.